Welcome to another hockey content with myself and my guy, Jim. So Jim, it's been an interesting week of hockey. A lot of things have been going on in the second half. So the first one that I want to talk about is arguably the best player in the NHL right now, Connor McDavid. I had two questions for you. Number one, do you think he will reach 70 goals? And number two, do you think, because Edmonton will be facing Arizona, I'm forgetting the other two teams that will be facing the rest of the season, but do you think that the remaining three teams that will be facing Edmonton, should they have a quote-unquote Wayne Gretzky rule on Connor McDavid?
So these are two great questions, and Miguel, thanks for having me on. As we always do our hockey content here, Connor McDavid is the best player in the world, and I want to throw this out here right now. If he doesn't unanimously win the Hart Trophy as the NHL MVP, there's a problem. And I want to know whose ballot had him not number one, because he's by far the best player in the world. That being said, 70 goals, man, that's going to be tough. I think he's 16 away. He went pointless against the Bruins on Thursday. So he's been averaging about 2 goals a game. So, if he can keep that pace up over the final, I think they have 17 games left now. I mean, it's not impossible, definitely tough. 60, definitely reachable. But if I'm betting, I'm going to take the under on 70. I don't know if he gets there. I don't know if we have the McGillney-Solani season. As far as the Gretzky rule, I mean, he plays Arizona, I believe, a couple of times. I know San Jose, and I think Anaheim thrown in there, maybe a couple other bad teams as well in that division. We know what the Gretzky rule is, and, you might as well have a Gretzky rule for this kid. I know they have a Gretzky rule in pools, and when they had fantasy hockey, and back in the day, you couldn't take Gretzky because there's an automatic win. It feels like you need a McDavid rule too, because this kid's just so good at what he does, passing the puck, shooting. He's elevated his game, and that's what the great ones do. And to me personally, I think you need a rule like that.
Yeah, because Wayne Gretzky, from 1982 to 85 in his Edmonton years, he scored more than 70 goals for 4 consecutive seasons. 92 was the highest, obviously, from 1982. And Connor McDavid is the best Edmonton Oiler since Wayne Gretzky. I think that's fair to say, unless, I'm forgetting someone, but I think it's safe to say that he's the best Edmonton Oiler or the most exciting Edmonton Oiler player since Wayne Gretzky. But Connor McDavid, I was going to say the same thing. He's basically averaging 2 goals per game. And the fact that Edmonton Oilers came from behind 2-0 deficit against a tough team like Boston without his production, that was an impressive victory by Edmonton Oilers. But you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I mean, very impressive, the fact that Bouchard and all these guys stepped up. It shows that they can win in the playoffs when McDavid and Draisaitl held off the board. I mean, back like last year, you would say, oh, it's a death sentence. The Oilers don't win a game without those 2 guys going off. And yeah, I agree. McDavid's the best Oiler since 99. I don't know if he's ever going to be the best since Wayne Gretzky. I don't know if he's ever going to pass Wayne Gretzky for an Oiler, because Wayne Gretzky had 4 Stanley Cups and, the numbers, and it's a different time. I mean, guys aren't putting up 70 goals anymore, but the fact that we can have 2 back-to-back 60-goal seasons, that in today's NHL, that's really impressive.
For sure. Now let's go with the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo Sabres, they have currently the longest playoff drought, which is 11. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2011. With the situation in the wild card right now, you have Florida, you have Washington, you have Ottawa, and standing in their way, trying to get in the wild card. Right now is the New York Islanders and Pittsburgh Penguins in that 1-2 in the wild card. What do you think the Buffalo Sabres chances are of making the playoffs?
To me, not very good. Too many teams to pass. And when you get beat 10-4 and your goaltending and your best goaltender is a 41-year-old and Craig Anderson who can't play every night, you have problems. And Kevin Adams never addressed that issue at the trade deadline. He should have. You needed somebody to ride with Craig Anderson. Eric Comrie gives up a 10 spot against Dallas. That can't happen. And they're losing too many of these games now down the stretch. Meanwhile, Ottawa is the hottest team right now in the NHL. They won 5 of their last 6 games. I think that stinker against Chicago, if they could have won that, go 6 straight. But I like the bounce back by the Sens. Florida's in their way. The Islanders are finding ways to win hockey games and they swept Pittsburgh. If there's a team that's going to get eliminated, it's probably going to be Pittsburgh. And I think if I'm betting, I'm not betting the Buffalo Sabres to do it. Now, that being said, I wrote out the Calgary Flames, and they're kind of making a charge. But I just don't see it with Buffalo. And I think it's going to probably be Ottawa that gets that final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. To me, I'm just not a fan of Buffalo's team right now, especially their goaltending.
Yes, Buffalo, they're 6 points behind the Pittsburgh Penguins, 3 games back. But it seems, and as for the Pittsburgh Penguins, during the Sidney Crosby era, they've always been there fighting and battling, competing. But this year, I'm just not too sold on them. And Ottawa right now, especially in the second half, the way they're playing, a lot of momentum is going their way. So I feel that if there is a team to land at least in that second wild card, it will be Ottawa. So I agree with that. Now let's go with one of my favorite topics that really interests me, and that's the goalie position for Toronto Maple Leafs. Do you believe that, not do you believe, or do you think that Matt Murray should be the primary goalie for the playoffs for Maple Leafs, or should be Samsonov? Because Samsonov, he has been performing well, especially against the Devils. Against the Devils, he had 30 saves, and he has won 4 of the last 5 starts. So which of the two do you feel that should be the primary goalie?
I'm going to go with Ilya Samsonov. As much as Matt Murray has the pedigree, he's won those 2 Stanley Cups. He won those 2 Stanley Cups 2016-17. That's a while ago now. He's had a lot of injury history. He's had some injuries. He's come back from injuries, a bunch of injuries this year with Toronto. Samsonov looks great. His road and home splits are a lot better. Yeah, he hasn't had playoff experience, but if you look at the Eastern Conference right now, how many guys can you say that they have a lot outside of Shesterkin and Vasilevsky, and then the Carolina goaltending? There's not too many guys that have goalies that have a lot of playoff experience. And the way Samsonov's playing right now, I would lean towards him in game 1 if the playoffs started this weekend. I'm going with Samsonov over Murray, and maybe that wakes Murray up out of his funk.
I like that they have both of them because that's a good tandem right there. But Toronto, in order for them to go far, you need your goalies to be on point. So if you're going to go with Samsonov has to bring his A game in the playoffs, because we know what Toronto can do in the regular season, but come playoff time, they need to rise to the occasion. Not just the goalie, but also guys like Matthews, Marner, Tavares, William Nylander. He's been phenomenal this season. And to me, William Nylander is like the secret weapon to their success. So Toronto, I like both goalies, but I agree I would have to go with Samsonov on this one if I had to pick someone.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Samsonov. I mean, Murray, again, has the experience, but like you said, all those guys that you point out there, they have to step up in the playoffs. They redid their team. They got in McCabe. They brought in the O'Reillys. They brought in these guys. But you know who you're facing in the first round. It's Andre Vasilevsky and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Maple Leafs can win 3 games by scoring 6 goals, but Vasilevsky can win 4 games stopping 40 shots. And that's the difference in the series, is when you have an all-star goalie who's won 2 Stanley Cups, been to 3 Stanley Cup finals. I'm taking Andre Vasilevsky if it goes 7 games. I'm just not sold on Toronto's goaltending. They have to play defense, and maybe they shift things around with Morgan Riley and everything, because he's not had a great defensive game since he's come back from injury. The Maple Leafs defensively were better without him in the lineup. I don't know if that says anything, but they were better defensively. But again, you know who you're facing in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have to step up their game come the first round.